So taking that information, taking your speed, taking the amount of outputs that you're putting into it, knowing your nozzles and your tip sizes, what's the next thing that we need to know? What type of crop are we spraying? What are our spacings? And in what cycle is that crop? All right, if it's transplanted crop, it's sitting in there and it's just this big, it's pretty easy to hit a crop that's this big. It's not asking a lot. Pretty much every piece of technology out there is going to hit it. So you want to know what cycle, what stage it's in though. If you're in mid-range, perfect. You can use a little bit of air, find out what that sweet spot is. But how am I going to know where to set the sprayer? What are my heights? Where do I go? In this setup, you have roughly 7 inches of spacing in between here. All right, so with this as a top nozzle and this spacing, where they're going to converge is going to be about right here. Then you have a low set. So that's going to create roughly a 7-inch spacing inside here also. So just like a typical bar, roughly 7 inches in their spacing. With that spacing, how far or how close can you be to the crop? Anybody? Yes, that's about optimal. You don't want to be any closer than 7 inches. Because if you get in the T-Jet manual, they're going to base everything off of a 20-inch boom, 20-inch spacings. It's all based off of calculations for grains, for wheat, for corn, right? So they use a 20-inch spacing. But you'll see the triangle, the spray pattern versus the next tip and the overlap of the spray pattern. If you come in between this spray pattern, which here at 7-inch spacing, it's going to fan out. At 7 inches, it's pretty much going to intersect with the next nozzle over. If you get inside that, what happens to that spray pattern that starts here and comes out? You get inside that, you're starting to stripe, right? You're getting inside the platform or the window of that spray pattern. Now it becomes, all right, now I'm blocking everything else, and I'm only going to get, 2 inches of a stripe in between there. You're absolutely too close to the crop. Too far away, you're letting more air in, it doesn't have as much pressure, and you've got a lot of overlap. When you set nozzles up, what I like to do is I take a nozzle and it's spraying straight down. I'll actually turn it 2 or 3 degrees. I'll take that next nozzle and I'll turn it 2 or 3 degrees. So they're not ever going to hit each other, they're going to spray front and back. Because the minute those two, if they're lined up perfectly straight and they hit, where they hit starts to drip. Might not be a big drip, but I'm losing effectiveness on that spray nozzle at that point because I'm going to flood the middle. Everything else is going to be fine, but I'm going to have a higher concentration of material going where they touch. So if you slightly offset those, it'll allow the fan to fan in front and behind, utilizing the chemical until it hits the crop. So you don't want to be too high. About 12 inches above the crop would be max where I'd want to go, or else you're going to start to bleed out. Right? It gets too light and it's not going to have the penetration that you want from the spray material itself, but inside that 7 inches, same thing. So you've got to pay attention to what our heights are. Now how do we gauge what that height is? I'm sitting in here, I've got this machine, it's bulky out the backside, I really can't see that well. It's not like my little thin bar where I can see everything. I'm top down and I kind of know my height parameters. I'm just setting it on top of the crop by this high. We use the lower air nozzles as the gauge. Where we want to set the lower air nozzle is halfway up the height of the crop. So you've got your bed and then you've got your crop. Center line of that crop, wherever that is where you want this lower nozzle. Now, that being said, new transplant or new growth, it's this big, you set that there, you're just going to pretty much blow dirt because it's only that big. Lift it up a little bit, again, you're not going to do anything but move dirt around. So if you go over that, you're still going to be able to get good coverage on new growth crops. And sometimes they'll start spraying when they're small, but generally not that small. So center line of nozzle on center line of crop. So when a driver's looking out there, you guys can see that air nozzle sitting out there because it's to the front. Where you're lifting that hood up, center line of that crop, match up, both sides. That way your pod's going to be at the right height and it's always going to be up off the fur. Right? one customer that we had, when it was brand new to them, they just kept not understanding that. And they'd call me, and I went out there at 11 o'clock at night, and they're like, what are we doing? And they've got mud all the way here. How's that working for you? Well, we're not getting the air out of that lower air nozzle. Right. You got a lot of air bubbles in your mud, though. That's fantastic. How's that spraying? It just, you got to use a little common sense. Dragging things through the dirt like that, and they were in wet ground, and I don't know why they were even spraying on that ground, but they were. It took them a while to learn how to lift the sprayer up. It's okay to be away. It's not a bar sprayer. You know, bars, they're used to setting them down and getting them in there, and they're only this far. You're wrapped. Doesn't mean that this was any closer to the crop than the bar sprayer would have been, but you have another 20 inches in here on the side that you do have to contend with. But that's where design, halfway through the crop, always keeps you out of the furrows. Right? Doesn't mean periodically you hit a rut or a hole and it undulates a little bit, bounces a little bit down, and it may touch the dirt. No problem. It's gonna bounce back up. If you got really soft, muddy dirt and you're running it and you're too low, it's gonna let you know, because when you come out of the field, you're gonna see a dirt stripe along the bottom. And that's, for us, we always can tell when somebody's been running it, and they need to lift that sucker back up a little bit. So where do we want to set the, what's the height profile? What's the height profile? Where do you want to set this? If you're going out tomorrow, you're going to get a station here over broccoli. It's about that big. Where are you going to set this sprayer on that?
No less than 7 inches away from the crop.
Okay. And how are you going to gauge?
From the seat of the tractor, the bottom nozzle halfway up the crop.
Perfect. All right. No closer than 7 inches. Bottom nozzle halfway up the crop. Now, that may put you, if the crop is right here, you're going to be at 10, 11 inches. Okay? That's, as the crop gets a little bit bigger, you may want to lift this up a little bit, but that's really what you're looking at inside of here. But the only way to gauge it, because it's hood, is to use your sight lines of the nozzle.